My name is Seraphina. I'm 28 years old, and 3 weeks ago I discovered that my parents have been taking secret family vacations without me for over 2 decades. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was finding out why they excluded me, and what I did about it completely destroyed our family forever. They always said I never fit in on trips. But the real reason would make your blood run cold. By the time I was done with my revenge, my parents lost everything they cared about most. Before we dive into this insane story, I'd love to know where you're watching from. Drop your location in the comments below, and if this hook already has you hooked, smash that like button and subscribe because this family betrayal gets absolutely wild. Trust me, you won't see this twist coming. Growing up, I always wondered why our family never went on vacations together. While my friends shared stories about Disney World trips and beach houses, my summers were spent at home with babysitters or my grandmother. My parents, David and Margaret, always had excuses. Money's tight this year, Sierra. We're too busy with work. Maybe next summer. I believed them for years. My older brother Marcus and younger sister Lily seemed to accept it too. Or so I thought. We were a middle-class family from suburban Ohio, and my parents worked decent jobs. Dad as an insurance adjuster, Mom as a school administrator. Tight budgets made sense. But 3 weeks ago, everything changed when I was helping my grandmother clean out her attic after she broke her hip. Grandma Rose had always been my closest family member, the one who actually seemed to enjoy my company. As we sorted through old photo albums, she pulled out a box I'd never seen before. "Oh, honey, I probably shouldn't have kept these," she said, her voice filled with regret. Inside were hundreds of photographs spanning 2 decades. Beach photos, mountain cabin pictures, amusement park snapshots, cruise ship selfies, and in every single one were my parents, Marcus and Lily, laughing, hugging, making memories. Without me. My hands trembled as I flipped through them. There was Marcus at age 10 building sandcastles, Lily at 12 on a zipline, my parents looking happier than I'd ever seen them. The timestamps showed these trips happened every summer, sometimes twice a year. While I was at home being told we couldn't afford vacations, they were living it up without me. "Grandma, what is this?" I whispered, my voice cracking. She sat down heavily, avoiding my eyes. "Sarah, sweetie, I never agreed with what they did. I kept the photos thinking maybe someday they'd explain. Maybe things would change." "Explain what? Why would they take family trips without me?" The silence stretched forever before she finally spoke. "They said you were too difficult on trips, that you complained too much, that you didn't appreciate things. They started leaving you behind when you were 8 years old. 8 years old. I had been 8 when my family began systematically excluding me from every vacation, every adventure, every opportunity to bond. For 20 years, they'd looked me in the eye and lied about why we never traveled as a family. But as I kept looking through photos, I noticed something else. In the earlier pictures, when I would have been 8 or 9, there were sometimes 5 place settings at restaurant tables, or 5 towels on beach chairs, quickly moved aside, like they'd planned for me initially, then changed their minds. "Grandma, tell me everything, please." Through tears, she revealed the truth. After a single trip to Cedar Point when I was 8, a trip I barely remembered, my parents decided I was too much work on vacations. I apparently had asked too many questions, gotten cranky when tired, and didn't want to ride the biggest roller coasters. Normal 8-year-old behavior, but somehow unforgivable to them. Marcus and Lily were sworn to secrecy with threats of losing their own trip privileges. The family developed an elaborate system of lies to cover their tracks. They'd tell me they were going to visit relatives or handle work obligations, then jet off to amazing destinations while I stayed with grandma or babysitters. The cruelest part? They'd come home with carefully curated stories about their boring business trips or exhausting family obligations, never letting slip about the fun they'd had. I spent hours that day going through every photo, seeing my family's joy without me, beach trips to California, ski lodges in Colorado, European tours, Disney cruises. Thousands of dollars spent on family bonding that never included their own daughter. The final straw was finding their current vacation itinerary in grandma's papers. They were leaving for Hawaii in 2 weeks, telling me it was a couple's retreat for my parents, while Marcus and Lily stayed with friends. Another lie. That night, I couldn't sleep. 20 years of feeling like something was wrong with me, like I wasn't worthy of family inclusion, suddenly made sense. They hadn't excluded me because money was tight. they'd excluded me because they decided I wasn't worth the effort. But as hurt as I was, the anger was stronger. They'd stolen decades of family memories from me and made me feel defective in the process. They thought I was too difficult at 8 years old. They were about to learn what difficult really meant. The next morning, I called in sick to my marketing job and spent the entire day planning. If my family wanted to play games, I was going to win. But first, I needed more information. I started with social media archaeology. My family wasn't very active online, but I found traces. Marcus' college girlfriend had tagged him in old spring break photos from Cancun. Lily had a Pinterest board called Family Memories with vacation photos I'd never seen. My mother's Facebook had check-ins from places Shed claimed never to have visited. The digital evidence was damning, but I needed more. I called my childhood babysitter, Mrs. Chen, who was always mysteriously available whenever my parents had emergency work trips. "Oh, Seraphina, honey," she said when I asked about those times. "I always felt so bad for you. Your parents would drop you off with just a few hours' notice, and you were always so confused about why you couldn't go with them." She confirmed what I suspected. The trips were planned months in advance. My parents would book her services, tell her to keep me busy, and not mention where the family had really gone, and pay her extra for her discretion. Next, I contacted my Uncle Tom, my father's brother, who I'd always felt was oddly distant despite living nearby. When I confronted him with what I'd discovered, he broke down. "Sierra, I'm so sorry. Your dad made me promise never to interfere, but I never agreed with what they were doing. They'd send us photos from their trips and talk about what a relief it was to travel without complications. Complications, that's what I was to them." Uncle Tom revealed even more devastating details. My parents hadn't just excluded me from vacations. They'd actively complained about me to extended family. They'd told relatives I was difficult, ungrateful, and not fun to be around. They'd poisoned the well so effectively that even aunts and uncles had started treating me differently, thinking I was some kind of problem child. "They made it seem like you had behavioral issues," Uncle Tom admitted. "I started to believe maybe there was something wrong. But seeing you grow up into such a wonderful woman, I realized they were just making excuses." The picture became crystal clear. My parents had decided when I was 8 that I was inconvenient, then spent 20 years systematically erasing me from family experiences, while simultaneously destroying my reputation with extended family to justify their actions. That's when I shifted from hurt to strategic. I wasn't going to confront them emotionally or beg for explanations. I was going to dismantle their lies systematically and publicly. First, I created a private photo album documenting everything I'd found. Screenshots of social media posts, photos from Grandma's collection, testimonies from Mrs. Chen and Uncle Tom. I organized it chronologically, showing 20 years of deception. Then I started reaching out to extended family members individually, asking innocent questions about family trips and vacations. The responses were illuminating. Aunt Patricia mentioned how my parents always seemed so relaxed and happy when they'd visit after their trips. Cousin Jennifer remembered my parents showing up to family reunions with tans and souvenirs from places they'd claimed never to have been. Nobody had realized the scope of the deception because my parents had carefully compartmentalized their lies. They'd tell me one story, extended family another, and their friends something else entirely. But I also discovered something else. My parents had been bragging about their trips to their social circles, while maintaining the fiction at home. My mother's book club knew about every vacation. My father's golf buddies had heard detailed stories about their adventures. They weren't ashamed of excluding me. They were proud of it. That's when I knew my response had to be proportional to their cruelty. They'd spent 20 years systematically excluding me, and then gaslighting me about it. They'd made me feel defective while bragging to others about how much better their lives were without me. I started documenting everything with the precision of a prosecutor building a case. Bank records showing large withdrawals during their supposed tight money periods that corresponded exactly with vacation dates. Credit card statements I obtained through Grandma, who was still listed on some of their accounts. Hotel receipts and airline confirmations. The evidence was overwhelming, but I needed the perfect moment to reveal it. That moment came when I found out about their upcoming Hawaii trip and realized they were planning to lie to me again in real time. I decided to let them go on their trip. Let them have one final vacation while lying to my face about it. Because when they came back, their entire world was going to crumble. While they were gone, I would gather the remaining evidence I needed, reach out to everyone who needed to know the truth, and prepare for the most devastating family confrontation in history. They thought I was too difficult at 8 years old? They were about to discover what their 28-year-old daughter could do when she was truly motivated. The war was about to begin, and I intended to win it completely. 2 weeks later, I watched my parents pack for their couple's retreat while Marcus and Lily pretended they were staying with friends. The lies rolled off their tongues so easily after 20 years of practice. "Well, miss you, sweetheart," Mom said, hugging me goodbye. "I wish this resort allowed children, but it's strictly adults only." I smiled and hugged her back. "Have fun relaxing. You two deserve some alone time." Dad joined the lie seamlessly. "It's going to be so boring, just sitting by the pool and going to boring couples therapy sessions. Nothing exciting at all." As soon as their taxi left, I put my plan into motion. I had 5 days to gather the final pieces of evidence and build my army of allies. First stop was my parents' house. Grandma had given me her emergency key years ago. Inside, I found their home office and hit the jackpot, a filing cabinet full of vacation documentation they'd kept as mementos. Boarding passes, hotel receipts, tour booking confirmations, restaurant receipts from expensive places they'd claimed never to afford. But the most damning evidence was my mother's vacation journal. Page after page of detailed entries about their trips, with specific mentions of how peaceful and stress-free traveling without me had been. She'd written things like, "So glad we don't have to deal with Sarah's questions about everything, and the kids are so much more fun without their sister slowing us down." My own mother had been documenting her relief at excluding me for years. I photographed everything, then carefully returned it all to exactly how I'd found it. They'd never know I'd been there. Next, I reached out to my parents, friends, and acquaintances. People who'd heard about their trips but didn't know about the deception. I posed as someone planning a surprise party and asked about their favorite family vacation memories. The stories poured out. Jim from Dad's office knew about their Alaskan cruise. Sandra from Mom's book club had heard detailed stories about their European tour. Their neighbor Mr. Rodriguez had house sat during multiple trips. Everyone knew except me. But I also discovered allies I hadn't expected. Mrs. Patterson from down the street pulled me aside during one of these conversations. "Honey, I always wondered why you never went with them," she said quietly. "It never seemed right to me. You're such a lovely girl, and family should stick together." More neighbors shared similar feelings. My parents' friends had been too polite to question their choices, but many had privately felt uncomfortable about the family dynamics they witnessed. I reached out to Marcus and Lily's friends from high school and college. Through careful questioning, I discovered that both my siblings had eventually felt guilty about the situation, but had been too afraid to speak up. Marcus had even tried to convince our parents to include me on a few trips during his teenage years, but they'd shut him down completely. Sarah, Lily's college roommate, revealed something crucial. Lily used to cry about it sometimes. She said she felt horrible leaving you behind but was terrified your parents would exclude her too if she pushed back. She called it survival mode. This information was important because it showed my siblings weren't just willing participants. They were victims of my parents' manipulation too, threatened into compliance. By day 3 of their Hawaii trip, Eid built a comprehensive case file and identified my key allies. Uncle Tom had agreed to help confront my parents when they returned. Mrs. Chen was willing to share her experiences publicly. Several neighbors were ready to speak up. Even my childhood pediatrician, Dr. Morgan, had records showing Id never had any behavioral issues that would justify exclusion from family activities. That's when I decided to expand the consequences beyond just family embarrassment. I researched my parents' professional lives and discovered something interesting. Both of their workplaces had family-friendly cultures that prided themselves on work-life balance and family values. My mother's school district had policies about inclusion and preventing child exclusion. My father's insurance company had a code of conduct emphasizing family integrity. I wasn't planning to get them fired, but I was going to make sure their professional communities knew who they really were. I also reached out to the Hawaii resort where they were staying. Using information from their booking confirmations, I called and spoke to their concierge. "Hi. I'm planning a surprise for my parents who are staying with you this week," I said sweetly. "They're David and Margaret Chen from Ohio, and they're there with their 2 children, Marcus and Lily. I'd love to arrange something special for their last night." The concierge was confused. "I'm sorry, miss, but I show they only have 2 guests registered in their party. Are you sure about the children?" Perfect. Even their hotel reservations proved they'd planned this trip excluding me from the beginning. On their 4th day away, I received photos via social media that made my blood boil. Marcus had posted a sunset dinner photo with the caption, "Family time is the best time." Lily shared a snorkeling video titled "Making Memories with My Favorite People." They weren't just excluding me. They were publicly celebrating my exclusion while still lying about where they were. That night, I made my final preparations. I created a detailed presentation with timeline evidence, financial proof, testimonies from allies, and most importantly, screenshots of their social media posts, proving they were in Hawaii, while telling me they were at couples therapy. I also prepared individual confrontation packets for each family member, customized to their specific lies and behavior patterns. For my parents, I had 20 years of evidence showing premeditated exclusion and systematic deception. For Marcus, I had evidence of his participation, but also testimonies showing Head tried to include me sometimes, giving him a chance for redemption. For Lily, I had similar evidence but also proof that Shed felt guilty, offering her the same opportunity. The beauty of my plan was that I wasn't just going to expose them. I was going to give my siblings a chance to choose sides publicly. They could continue enabling our parents' behavior, or they could finally stand up for what was right. Either way, the family dynamics that had excluded me for 20 years were about to be permanently shattered. As I prepared for their return tomorrow, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years: excitement about a family gathering, because for the first time in my life, I was going to be the one controlling the narrative. They wanted to exclude me from family experiences? I was about to create a family experience they'd never forget. How would you handle discovering your family had been systematically excluding you from 2 decades of vacations while lying to your face about it? Because tomorrow, my parents were going to face the consequences of their choices, and nothing would ever be the same. Would you like me to continue with parts 5, 6, and 7? The confrontation and aftermath are absolutely explosive. They returned from Hawaii on a Sunday evening, sun-kissed and relaxed, with carefully rehearsed stories about their boring couples retreat. I'd invited myself over for dinner, claiming I wanted to hear all about their therapeutic getaway. How was the couple's counseling? I asked innocently as we sat around their dining room table. Mom launched into an elaborate fiction about communication exercises and meditation sessions. Dad added details about healthy eating workshops and early bedtimes. Marcus and Lily nodded along, playing their parts in the family theater. It sounds so rejuvenating, I said, pulling out my phone. I actually looked up some couples retreats online after you left. I found the most interesting place, the Grand Wailea Resort in Maui. Have you heard of it? The color drained from their faces, but they held their composure. No, never heard of it, Dad said too quickly. That's so weird, I continued, swiping through my phone. Because I have some photos here that look exactly like you guys at that resort. I placed my phone on the table, showing Marcus' Instagram post of them at sunset dinner. The silence was deafening. "Sera, we can explain," Mom started. "Oh, I'm sure you can," I interrupted, standing up and walking to their living room. "Just like you explained all those other trips you never took." I opened my laptop, which I'd strategically placed there earlier, and connected it to their TV. The first slide of my presentation filled the screen: 20 years of systematic family exclusion, a comprehensive analysis. "What the hell is this?" Dad demanded. "This is the truth, Dad, something this family hasn't seen in 2 decades. I clicked through the presentation methodically. Photos from Grandma's collection spanning 20 years. Bank records showing large withdrawals during supposed tight money periods. Social media posts contradicting their stories. Testimonies from babysitters, relatives, and family friends. Marcus and Lily sat frozen as they watched their participation in the deception laid bare. My parents' faces cycled through denial, anger, and panic. "You had no right to go through our private information," Mom said, her voice shaking. "I had every right to discover why my own family has been excluding me since I was 8 years old," I replied coldly. "But we're just getting started." I clicked to the next section: financial analysis. "Over 20 years, you've spent approximately $67,000 on vacations that excluded me. That's enough money to pay for a college education, or a house down payment, or any number of things that might have actually benefited your supposedly difficult daughter." The numbers hung in the air like an accusation. $67,000 spent on family bonding that never included me. "Now, let's talk about the lies," I continued, advancing to testimonial screenshots. "Mrs. Chen confirmed you paid her extra to never mention where you'd really gone. Uncle Tom admitted you've been bad-mouthing me to extended family for decades, calling me difficult and ungrateful to justify your exclusion. Sera, please, Lily whispered, tears streaming down her face. Please what, Lily? Please continue pretending this is normal? Please keep lying to protect them. I turned to address her directly. I found out you used to cry about leaving me behind. Your roommate told me you felt guilty, but were terrified they'd exclude you too if you spoke up. Lily broke down completely. I'm so sorry, Sera. I wanted to tell you so many times, but I was scared. And Marcus, I continued. You actually tried to convince them to include me on some trips, didn't you? But they shut you down completely. Marcus nodded miserably. I stopped trying after sophomore year. They made it clear the trips would stop completely if I kept pushing. So you both knew this was wrong, but chose your own comfort over doing the right thing. I clicked to the next slide. Professional consequences. Both my parents' workplace logos appeared on screen. What are you doing? Dad asked, his voice panicked. I'm showing you that actions have consequences. Mom, your school district has very strict policies about inclusion and preventing child exclusion. They probably wouldn't appreciate knowing one of their administrators has been systematically excluding her own daughter for 20 years. You wouldn't, she gasped. Dad, your insurance company prides itself on family values and integrity. I wonder how they'd feel about an employee who's been deceiving his own family for decades while bragging about it to coworkers. This is blackmail, he snarled. No, this is justice. You've spent 20 years making me feel like there was something fundamentally wrong with me. You've stolen decades of family memories and made me question my worth as a human being. And you've done it all while lying to my face and laughing about it behind my back. I clicked to the final slide. Choices and consequences. Harry's what's going to happen. You're going to publicly acknowledge what you've done to our extended family. You're going to explain to everyone why you've been excluding me, and apologize for the lies you've spread about my character. And if we don't, Mom asked defiantly, then I release all of this to your employers, your friends, your neighbors, and anyone else who's been fed your lies over the years. I'll post it on social media, send it to your book club, your golf buddies, and anyone else who's heard your vacation stories. You'll be known as the parents who spent 20 years systematically abusing their own daughter. The room fell silent except for Lily's quiet sobbing. But I'm not unreasonable, I continued. Marcus and Lily, you have a choice. You can continue enabling this behavior, or you can finally stand up for what's right. If you publicly acknowledge what happened and commit to never participating in excluding me again, I'll consider you victims of their manipulation rather than willing participants. Marcus was the first to speak. Sera, I'm so sorry. You're right, we should have stood up for you years ago. I was a coward. Lily nodded through her tears. I'll do whatever you want. I've felt guilty about this my entire life. My parents sat in stunned silence, realizing their children had just chosen me over them. You have until tomorrow morning to decide. I told my parents, public acknowledgement and sincere apology, or public humiliation. Your choice. I closed my laptop and headed for the door, leaving my family in chaos. Sera, wait, Dad called out desperately. I turned back. 20 years, Dad. You've had 20 years to do the right thing, and instead you chose cruelty. Now you get to live with the consequences. As I walked out, I heard Mom screaming at Marcus and Lily for betraying the family. The irony was delicious. She was angry at them for the same betrayal she'd been inflicting on me for decades. The war was won. Now came the reckoning. The next morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls and 43 text messages. The family group chat I'd been excluded from for years was suddenly including me, with desperate messages from my parents begging for a private conversation. But the most interesting message came from my Uncle Tom. Sera, your mother called me at 6 a.m. crying and asking me to convince you to be reasonable. I told her it's about time someone held them accountable. I'm proud of you. At exactly 9 a.m., I received a call from Mom. Sera, please, we need to talk privately. This doesn't need to involve anyone else. Everything involving this family has excluded me for 20 years. I replied calmly. I think it's time for some inclusion, don't you? What do you want from us? She asked, her voice breaking. I told you last night. Public acknowledgement and sincere apology, or public consequences. We can't do that. It would destroy our reputation. Your reputation should be destroyed. You've been lying to people for decades. That afternoon, Marcus called. Sera, they're in complete panic mode. Dad's been calling in sick to work because he's afraid you've already contacted his company. Mom hasn't left her bedroom. Good. They should be afraid. Terror is what I've lived with for 20 years, wondering what was wrong with me that my own family didn't want me around. Lily and I want to meet with you privately. We want to do the right thing, but we're scared of completely destroying the family. They destroyed this family 20 years ago, Marcus. I'm just revealing the damage. We met that evening at a coffee shop near my apartment. Both Marcus and Lily looked exhausted and guilt-ridden. We've been talking all day, Lily said immediately. We want to support you, but we're terrified of losing our parents completely. You're worried about losing parents who taught you that excluding family members was acceptable? I asked. Marcus leaned forward. Sarah, we know what they did was wrong. It was horrible. But they're still our parents, and completely destroying them feels what? Fair? Because that's exactly what they did to me. We want to find a middle ground, Lily pleaded. Maybe we could get them to acknowledge it privately and promise to change. I stared at my siblings, realizing they still didn't fully understand the scope of what our parents had done. Let me ask you something, I said slowly. Do you remember when you were kids, being excited about family trips? They nodded. Do you remember me begging to come along, asking why I couldn't go? Their faces crumpled as the memories surfaced. Do you remember our parents telling you that I was too difficult, too much trouble, not fun to be around? Yes, Marcus whispered. They didn't just exclude me from trips. They programmed you to see me as a problem. They taught you that I was less worthy of family love and inclusion. And you both internalized that so deeply that even now, when faced with undeniable evidence of their cruelty, you're more worried about their feelings than mine. Lily started crying again. We're not trying to dismiss what happened to you. But you are. You're asking me to accept a private apology for 2 decades of public humiliation. You want me to protect their reputation while they've been destroying mine since I was 8 years old. I pulled out my phone and showed them screenshots I hadn't shared the night before. Social media posts from our parents, friends, and extended family that painted me as the difficult daughter who didn't participate in family activities. This is what they've created, I said. A narrative where I'm the problem, where my absence from family events is my own fault. Aunt Patricia thinks I'm antisocial. Cousin Jennifer believes I don't like family time. Your parents' friends think I'm ungrateful and selfish. All because our parents have been spreading lies for 20 years. Marcus looked sick. I didn't realize it had gone that far. A private apology doesn't fix any of this. Only public acknowledgement of their deception can restore my reputation and ensure this never happens to anyone else in our family. That night, my parents made their choice. Instead of acknowledging their behavior, they decided to double down. Mom posted on Facebook about how difficult family dynamics sometimes require tough love, and that some children need to learn appreciation the hard way. It was a veiled attack on me, trying to control the narrative before I could expose them. That was their final mistake. I spent the entire night creating a comprehensive social media post documenting everything. Photos spanning 20 years, financial records, testimonies from babysitters and relatives, and screenshots of their lies. I tagged every family member, family friend, neighbor, and professional contact I could find. The post went live at 6 a.m. with a simple caption, 20 years of systematic family exclusion, the truth about why I never went on family vacations. Within hours, the responses started pouring in. Neighbors expressing shock and disgust. Extended family members apologizing for believing my parents' lies. My mother's coworkers from the school district commenting their horror at her behavior. My phone buzzed constantly with messages of support from people I hadn't heard from in years. High school friends who'd always wondered why I seemed disconnected from my family. College acquaintances who'd noticed I never had family vacation stories. But the most satisfying responses came from my parents' social circles. My father's golf buddies were expressing their disgust in the comments. My mother's book club members were sharing their own stories of how my parents had badmouthed me over the years. The reputation they'd spent decades building was crumbling in real time. By noon, my father's company had called him for a meeting. My mother's school district had received multiple complaints about her behavior. Their carefully constructed public image was completely destroyed. Marcus called me, sobbing. Sarah, they want to meet with you. They're ready to do whatever you want. It's too late for that, I said calmly. They made their choice when they tried to attack me on social media instead of taking responsibility. What happens now? Now they live with the consequences of their actions, just like I've had to live with the consequences of theirs for 20 years. The family I'd known was officially dead, but for the first time in my life, I felt free. 6 months later, I'm sitting in my new apartment across town, surrounded by people who actually want me around. My chosen family includes Uncle Tom, who's become like a father to me, Mrs. Chen, who's practically adopted me as an honorary daughter, and several neighbors from my childhood who've reached out after learning the truth. The aftermath of my revelation was swift and comprehensive. My father was quietly asked to resign from his insurance company after their investigation into his character. My mother was transferred to a different school district and removed from all leadership positions. Their social standing in the community completely evaporated once people learned the truth about their decades of deception. But the most significant change was in my siblings. Marcus and Lily both cut contact with our parents entirely after discovering additional evidence I hadn't even known about. While cleaning out the house to help Mom and Dad downsize to a smaller place, they found journals and documents going back even further, showing our parents had been planning to exclude me from family activities since I was 5 years old. They wrote about you like you were a burden from the beginning, Marcus told me through tears during one of our weekly coffee meetings. They never gave you a chance. Lily had perhaps the strongest reaction. She moved out of their house immediately and has been attending therapy to process the guilt she's carried for years. I realize now that I was living in an abusive system, she said recently. They taught us that excluding you was normal, even necessary. I'm so ashamed it took me this long to see how wrong that was. Both Marcus and Lily have been working hard to rebuild our relationship. We started family therapy together, just the three of us, to address the damage our parents caused to our sibling bonds. It's been difficult but healing. For the first time in our lives, we're functioning as actual siblings instead of co-conspirators in my exclusion. The extended family response has been overwhelmingly supportive. Aunt Patricia reached out with a heartfelt apology and an invitation to join her family's Christmas celebration. Cousin Jennifer admitted she'd always felt something was off about my absence from family events but had been told I simply didn't enjoy family gatherings. Uncle Tom has become my biggest advocate, helping me understand that healthy families include everyone and work through differences together, rather than excluding members who don't fit a perfect mold. What they did to you was systematic emotional abuse, he told me, and you handled it with more grace and intelligence than they ever deserved. My parents have tried reaching out multiple times through intermediaries, but their messages always focus on their own pain rather than acknowledging mine. They still seem to believe they were justified in their actions, that I somehow deserved exclusion, and that my response was disproportionate to their parenting choices. Last month, Mom sent a letter through Grandma Rose asking for family healing and suggesting we move past this misunderstanding. The letter contained no acknowledgement of wrongdoing, no apology, and no commitment to change. It was exactly what I expected from people who spent 20 years lying to my face. I wrote back through Grandma. There was no misunderstanding. There was systematic exclusion, decades of deception, and deliberate emotional abuse. When you're ready to acknowledge what you actually did and make amends for the specific harm you caused, we can talk. Until then, I wish you well from a distance. The professional consequences for my parents have been lasting. Dad has struggled to find new employment because word has spread through professional networks about his character issues. Mom's career in education is essentially over, as no district wants to hire an administrator who systematically excluded her own child. Some people might say I went too far, that I destroyed my parents' lives over just vacations. But those people miss the point entirely. This was never about vacations. This was about 20 years of systematic emotional abuse designed to make me feel unworthy of family love and inclusion. The trips were just the vehicle for a deeper cruelty, convincing a child that she was fundamentally flawed, too difficult to love, not worth the effort of inclusion. They taught my siblings to see me as a burden. They spread lies about my character to extended family and friends. They stole my childhood's sense of belonging and security. When I think about that 8-year-old girl who was deemed too difficult for family trips, my heart breaks. She deserved parents who worked through her questions and crankiness with patience and love. She deserved siblings who stood up for her inclusion. She deserved a family that saw her as valuable enough to invest in. That little girl never got the family she deserved, but the woman she became refused to accept that treatment any longer. My life now is fuller and healthier than it's ever been. I've learned to recognize real family love versus conditional acceptance. I've built relationships with people who value my questions, appreciate my curiosity, and include me, not despite my personality but because of it. Marcus and Lily are slowly learning what healthy family dynamics look like. We take trips together now. Real family trips where everyone's included and no one's excluded for being human. Last month, we went to Yellowstone. And for the first time in my life, I experienced what family vacation joy actually feels like. The most unexpected gift of this entire experience has been discovering who I really am when I'm not constantly trying to be less difficult to earn family inclusion. Turns out, I'm naturally curious, enthusiastically expressive, and deeply loyal, traits that healthy families celebrate rather than suppress. Sometimes justice looks like dramatic courtroom victories or villain punishments in movies, but real-life justice often looks like this: truth being revealed, consequences being faced, healthy boundaries being established, and authentic relationships being built. My parents spent 20 years teaching me that I wasn't worth including in family love, but in the end, their cruelty taught me something more valuable. I'm worthy of being chosen by people who appreciate exactly who I am. Have you ever discovered that people you trusted had been systematically lying to you for years? How did you handle learning that your own family had been excluding you while making you feel like the problem? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Sometimes sharing these experiences helps us all feel less alone in complicated family situations. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life drama and family justice stories. Share this with anyone who's ever felt excluded or gaslit by their own family. Sometimes we all need to know that standing up for ourselves is worth it, even when it's scary. Thanks for listening to my story, and remember, you deserve to be included, valued, and loved exactly as you are. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise.